let's start this conversation again. You've had a shave, mate.
It was an accidental shave. So, it's I was home yesterday and I was getting ready, like I was having a little bit of pokiness around my lips.
Oh,
So I
no.
was like, I've got to trim the beard a little and like, get it to where it's not pokey. And so I get my clippers out and I apparently was looking at the wrong side of the clippers
Oh, no.
and I set it to a 1 instead of a 5. And I hit this part of my mustache right here and I go, oh no. So I mean, it is like, so I had to trim it all down, but like this is like a 4 and this is a 1. And I'm like, oh no, where's my beard? It's absolutely horrible.
I'm in tears. Oh, so good. So good. Bill says Samson has lost his power.
I know. Hey, Bill, come on now. Let's go. Power's still there.
Oh, man, that's so funny. Power is the right word, though, isn't it? Power is the word that we're going to be using. What are we talking about today, mate?
We're talking about the power of our words.
The power of our words. Why?
Because they can either bring us life or death. And I did an experiment.
Go on,
I did an experiment to prove it. This is not conceptual. This is not theoretical. This is fact.
Science.
Like, boom. Like, bring it. Like, let's go. So what I did was is I ran an experiment for 21 days with my kids. So what I did is I took an apple and I cut the apple in half. And I took one half of the apple and I put it in, we call them mason jars. Do you guys call them mason jars? Canning jar, like the canning jars where you can vegetables. So I put them in there. And then one in one side, one in the other. One jar had the word hate on it and one jar had the word love. And we sealed the jars, right? So sealed them tight with the lids. And we put them on a window seal about 20 inches apart so they were getting the same amount of light, everything. And with that, with the hate half of the same apple, all we spoke were hate-filled, negative words for 21 days.
You stinky apple.
Yeah, like just, I mean, and like my daughter's, my youngest daughter, Blakely, she's 5, did not want to speak negatively to the hate apples. So I had to tell her, I'd be like, yo, babe, like you have to do this. Like you can't.
What is the harshest thing they came out with?
Pretty much they would just be like, you stupid apple, you're no good. You're not worth anything. No one loves you. Those types of things. And then the love apple, we only spoke love and positivity to, and saying how beautiful the apple was, how delicious the apple was, how, how much we loved the apple. And again, they were only 20 inches apart on the same windowsill. And so it's not like the other apple couldn't hear the words, right? And we spoke with the same tonality, the same level of inflection, all of those things. We just directed hate to one and love to the other. And after 21 days, if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see the drastic difference between the two apples. Because one was rotted and disgusting, like it smelled inside the jar, like it was oozing stuff, like brown. And the other apple, we'll see if I can kind of show a picture of it here and where you can actually see it. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Yeah.
So that was the culmination of the experiment. And and what I wanted to show, what I wanted to teach my kids, and not only my kids, but I wanted to teach, I wanted it to be a real life lesson for other people on social media or whatever, that we have to be really careful to which we're speaking to other people.
Yep.
And not only speaking to other people, but speaking over ourselves as well, that negativity and hate, those things that come out of our mouth, they have the power to rot and destroy others and ourselves. That if we speak that way, and because oftentimes, let's be honest, Ryan, we speak worse internally about ourselves and to ourselves than what we would ever speak vocally to someone else.
Yep.
But that our words carry power of life and death over us and others.
Just trying to find the scripture that you were talking about, Proverbs 18:21. Yeah. Powerful, my friend. So what we're going to talk about today, about that topic, what do we want people to hear?
Well, I think like there's multiple different facets of it, right? There's the idea of being a leader, and how we speak to those on our teams, and the feedback that we give to people, the way we show up when people disappoint or don't perform to the level of expectation that we have. How do we speak to them? How do we encourage them? How do we speak into their lives so they can so they continue to grow and develop? The other side of it is us as leaders within our family or within, with our kids, how we just in general speak to people that we interact with every single day. Yeah. And that it's not just about speaking love to the ones that we love, but speaking love and life to the ones that we encounter on a daily basis every single day.
So again, 21 days is a test of patience. At what point during those 21 days did you see some physical transformation?
After the first 4 or 5 days, we started to see a noticeable shift. And I wanted to take time lapse pictures, but it was really hard to see through a lens through the mason jar. Honestly, it was very hard to notice the change. You could kind of see the change, yep. But I didn't want to disturb the environment of the apple, so I didn't want to pull the apple out to look at them and take pictures. I wanted to leave because I wanted the experiment to be. I didn't want anybody to be able to say, oh, well, this apple had more light than this apple, or this one got oxygen, this one didn't. So I didn't want to disrupt, I wanted to control every variable that I could over the experiment. And the only variable that changed between the two was the words spoken. But really after 5 days, you noticed there was a tint difference in the apples, and but I was blown away just opening them up today to see the difference in them, and how one apple just looked like it had been sitting out for a few hours, right? Versus one that looked like it had been sitting out
for 21 days.
For 21 days. And just the touch of it, man, it was gross and squishy, and it smelled. It was rotting. It was literally rotting. Same apple. Same apple, just split in half. So you can't even say, well, one apple probably was less ripe than the same apple, cut in half.
That's really interesting. Before we talk about what that really means for us as adults, what did your kids take away from that?
Oh my, you could see they like I started the conversation, like it was really like, oh, look at, oh, that apple's so gross. That's so yucky. Like, oh, and look at this apple. And I was like, guys, I was like, what do you think that means? It's like, what's happening to this apple? And they're like, oh, it looks like it's dying. It's so gross. And I was like, if that apple, which we know is a living organism, right? Like it has living cells within it. I said, gosh, if that apple did that when we were speaking really horrible to it, how does that affect when we speak really mean things to our brothers or sisters? How does that affect when we speak mean things and call each other stupid? Right. And so we started going through, and I was like, do you think that you've ever spoken negatively to any of your friends, or called them dumb, or said what they were doing was stupid, or that their dress wasn't pretty? Right. And they were all like, you could see them, begrudgingly shaking their head. Yes.
Have you ever laughed at your friend who trimmed his beard too short?
I don't even recognize myself in the video. And I was going to leave it. I was going to leave this part just short and leave everything else, but we're going to like a wedding this weekend. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. There's way too much cheek showing now. The darling cheeks are coming out, and there's just way too much of it. But and then really what I was trying to do was really paint that picture of even as kids, what are you speaking to your friends? What are you saying to your friends? And do you understand the power that you have by just the words that you speak, and how can we learn? So I was asking my daughters and son, I was like, so what can we say? Like, how can we do this with people? They were like, well, I was like, do we want to cause to people what happened to the hate apple to our friends or our brothers and sisters? And they were like, and she was like, they were all like, no. I was like, so then what do we probably need to do? We need to be kind. We need to love. We need to, have gratitude and show up in love for our friends and support them and encourage them. Right. We don't need to tear them down. And so it was cool conversations.
Where should we take this conversation?
Well, I want to know how your week's been. I saw a post that you're booked up until April, my friend.
Yeah, I've got to a point. So I've started reading Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and there were periods during lockdown where I had a really good balance. I was doing what I love. I was coaching, but I was having some downtime, and then things went mental with Always Better Than Yesterday, and consultancy kind of came in. And you'll never hear me complain about being able to serve and be busy, but there has been an effect on the way that I feel like I'm living. Like I felt rushed. I felt tired. I felt impatient. I felt not unpresent, and I've had a back pain for about 3 weeks. So I feel like I've really been not flying on empty, but like I haven't had a lot of peace and presence in my last couple of weeks. You probably see by my eyes, and it's been a very, very busy week. But actually, I've taken that to a place where you were being very positive about my being booked up. And I really am. And I'm very fortunate, very grateful. I need to find better balance. I need to find a sense of peace within the flow and the rhythm of my weeks is where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about this idea of balance. Do you think it's possible to find balance?
No, I shared a post, I think, with when I went paddleboarding with Corey. I don't believe in the word balance unless I'm on the paddleboard with Corey, because if he's not balancing, we're heading in the water. So in that moment, we need to be balanced. But I believe in intention. And I'm not shy of hard work, and there have been days where I do 16, 17-hour days. That's not a badge of honor. That's just fact. That's just what I've done. But I know that that can't last forever. And I know that there has to be an intentionality on the other side of the day, the other side of the week. And I think where I've just been going so hard for so long, it's a case of I need to really set some intention to pull back some of that balance, pull back some of that intentional downtime.
Yeah. Do you think, I oftentimes think that we look at balance as a destination or as a fixed point that we need to get to versus, and you kind of said it yourself. You said it two different ways with Corey. Corey is not, when you and Corey are on the paddleboard together, you and Corey are not in a place of balance. You are constantly balancing.
Yes.
Right. And I've talked about this with Luke Frazier and JJ, and I don't know, I think maybe you and I have talked a little bit about it before, but it's this, I like to think of it an idea of constantly counterbalancing, understanding that if you give more attention to something over here, it's going to steal away from attention over here. And so when you do that, and that's where that intentionality comes in. When you notice, okay, I've given 16 hours to work, which takes away from family. So you're so you're off balance, right? So it's this constant act of counterbalancing, going, okay, now I need to be really intentional with my time with my family, so that they feel loved, appreciated, seen, and understood. And it's this constant state of back and forth, just like in a boat, right? Or on a paddleboard, you're constantly rocking back and forth. If you give too much weight over here, you're gone. Too much weight over here. But it's this, if a wave comes, right, and disrupts it a little bit, you have to find that, you kind of groove with it, right? Because you're constantly in an act of balancing.
Yep. Because
you're never really truly balanced.
Yeah. Great story, mate. Great storytelling. I love that. Another storyteller that I really love is Bob Goff. Have you come across his new book yet?
I have. Wait, he's got a new book?
Yeah, it's called Dream Big. Very, very good. It's not. I'm going to put it out there. Not as good as Love Does and Everybody Always, but it's good.
Yeah, Everybody Always is. I'm learning so much about that right now. Like who do we love and who is our neighbor? So the wife and I are doing we're doing some marriage coaching through with a pastor and his wife, and we might have talked about it a little bit. And it's funny. Let's just, I have said to people, oh yeah, my wife and I are going through like this marriage counseling, marriage coaching, stuff with this pastor and his wife. And they're, oh,
yeah.
Is something wrong?
Yep.
Is your marriage okay? Yes. Fools. My marriage is fine. You don't get coaching just because your marriage sucks. If you wait until your marriage sucks to get help on your marriage, then it's probably too late. Right? Like an NBA player or a professional footballer in Europe, right?
Soccer.
On the pitch over there in soccer, or a professional rugby player, probably true football without pads, what real men play.
You're learning.
Right? They're constantly being coached. Even if they're playing well, they're being coached. But it's so funny, this ideology we have around self-coaching and getting coaching for our marriage or counseling for our marriage, getting help in how to do things better, because it automatically means, well, then something has to be wrong. No, but we want to be better. Yes, of course we do. So just throwing that out there. Think about that. Think about the mentality you have when you hear someone say, oh yeah, we're going through this. Just because someone is getting help with something does not mean that it is something that they are struggling with.
Yeah. Lisa and I did a 6-week program too. And it was a really interesting concept, because like you say, we sit here and we coach each other, making time for purposeful, meaningful conversations. You might learn something or two.
Right. Yeah. It's like, so we're going through this, and what we're learning is we're learning about becoming love. And what does it mean to become love? And it is like, I'm just going to tell you, it is incredibly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
What we're learning is incredibly difficult. Now, taking it to the spiritual side of things, believing that if God lives within us and we understand what God says about us and who he created us to be, and our value is found in that, then it doesn't matter what anyone else does, what anyone else says, or what anyone else, we can't be offended by others if we understand where our value comes from, because we always know the truth. And when people do things that, let me put it this way, that affect us, if people are mean to us, if they disappoint us, if they, whatever it is, if that happens, oftentimes we think, oh, how do I deal with this? How do I handle this disappointment? How do I, like, help me have patience for this person. Help me have this. And the difference is, becoming love is not about you. It's about them. And if they are living underneath anything other than the great value in who they were created to be, then you probably shouldn't be praying for patience for yourself and how to deal with them and how to overcome it. You should probably be looking at them because there's something broken in them that desperately needs to be loved. And so it's not about looking inward to what's going on and how something affected us or offended us. It's looking outward, going, what is it inside of that person that makes them think that is who they are, and how do we pray for them and love them through that so that they see the great value in who they were created to be.
Yeah. It's also that concept of be careful what you wish for, because if you're praying for patience, well, here you go, have a difficult person.
Right. I heard a comment yesterday. I was talking to a friend, Will Davis. I met him in Phoenix, and played in the NFL, professional football player, American football player. And we were talking last night, and he said, God allows disappointment in our life so that we can see what we truly and really need to pray for and who we need to pray for. Because it's not about our disappointment, it's about other people. Mm-hmm. And being able to see other people in their brokenness and loving them through it, not trying to figure out how we make it through it. Mm. And I'm going through some of that in my personal life at the moment, and really had it hit me yesterday with a situation. And I wanted to be mad and upset and disappointed and frustrated and angry. And my wife, who's absolutely incredibly smart and intelligent and way better looking due to my beard situation, said, hey, like, why are you upset? Because it actually has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with you. There were choices and things that were made that showed the brokenness inside of this other person. You should be disappointed and brokenhearted for them, not, this hurts me. She was like that, and that's what we're learning. And I love that she called me out on it, that, like, we're told, if we're offended 76 times, we forgive 77. Mm-hmm. That forgiveness and grace knows no bounds, and it shouldn't know any bounds for us either.
It's really powerful, mate. I really appreciate you sharing that. And something came up when you were talking. It's really so when you're saying becoming love is really challenging anyway, if you throw in all of those life's distractions, busyness, our phones, back pain, back pain is taking me out of that becoming love. I really notice it. You coming from a place of intentional becoming love to having back pain. It's like, oh man, like it's that really taking you away from being present in the moment. Because, well, I guess it brings you into the present moment, but all you can think about is you and your pain, and it takes you away from thinking about how to help and serve others when you're so busy trying to limit your own pain. And in Bob Goff's book, he talked about the issues of being busy and the impact of our phones, and he says it wouldn't be the first time we've been done in by an apple. And I really like that phrase.
Oh my gosh. Ah!
Very good phrase, right?
Well, and think about that too. So Will and I, going back to Will, you've got to meet him. You'll meet him soon. It's really cool. He's been at this retreat for the last 21 days for NFL players and things. And it's been really cool, really good for him. But we were talking last night, and where is it here? It says it's in Proverbs, I believe Proverbs or Psalms, and it says the eyes. Hold on, I'll find it. Eyes are the light. I'll find it. I promise. Pretty much what it says is that the eyes are the light to the body. Here we go. Your eye is a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. So think about that in the context of the conversation of where are we focused? What are we looking at? When it comes to busyness and distraction and stress and our phones and our own priorities, we're oftentimes, if you will, follow with me, we're oftentimes looking inward. And we're looking down. We're looking at our phone, right? And we're looking at our own priorities and our own schedules and our own situations and our own struggles. And we're not seeing the world for what it truly is. We're not seeing the sunshine. We're not seeing the light. We're not having our eyes focused on what it is that is most important, which is what we've been called to earth to do, which is to love and care for and be in relationship with other people, to be more focused on others than what we are on ourselves, so that we can show up, do our best, and serve and love and do those things. And it's so interesting that when our eye is healthy, our body is healthy. When we are only focused on ourselves and our stuff, we can't show up the way that we're supposed to.
Yo, we hope that this video is serving you well in your heart and in your mind. If you'd like to connect with Jonathan or I, head here for me, head here for Jonathan. And if you've got any questions, make sure you add them in the comments below. Much love, guys.
Is this Craig? Craig!
It's like three levels of beard.
I'm so jealous of both of your beards and my shaving mishap. Craig makes me even more self-conscious.
What have you done?
I went for a trim, and I trimmed it way too far. Craig,
understatement of the year.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I
good,
know.
buddy. It looks good.
Well,
good to see you, mate.
Myself.
And you? How are you two?
Yeah, we're well. We're well. Good to see you coming live from LYL HQ.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone I'm in here. I'm not meant to be.
No, that's cool. It's a backdrop, right?
It's just a backdrop, yeah.
It's a really cool picture you have that makes it look like you're somewhere that you're not.
Yeah, I'm not really here, because well, it doesn't matter why I shouldn't be here, but yeah. Anyway, I'm not. It's just a backdrop.
So we, I don't know if you caught the start of the conversation. We led off with Jonathan's experiment, where the power of words, and his kids have been doing an experiment around speaking positive or negative words, love and hate words to this apple, and the transformation that this apple that received the hate words, mold,
disgusting.
You talk about it, mate.
It was so gross. It smelled like, like I opened the lid and I was like.
So I found it really interesting, actually, and the bit where you challenge your kids on, well, what's the impact on people? I found that really quite profound, actually, and using the apples as an example, I thought was really, really clever. My scientific brain, though, would say, well, how many variables are in there to make it go moldy? And if you did it 100 times and it was the same 100 times, then yeah, I might get it. But in terms of an example, because I think the impact that words have on people are, well, they're untold, aren't they? And the impact that words have on ourselves, our own words, and our own stories, are just, oh my God, they're destructive. I saw something the other day. I think I was going to post something the other day, which was around the mind or your thoughts. So essentially, the language in your head has the ability to create, build, and destroy all at the same time.
Yep.
Powerful.
And it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is. And to your point, that was my concern, was like, I wanted to keep the variables as controlled as possible outside of just the words, right? So like I used the exact same jars, exact same lid, tried to tighten them at the exact same torque, put like not even kidding, like put them in the window, the same window, 20 inches apart. They receive the same amount of light, all of these different things, and tried to keep the variables. There's a physicist, because I didn't make this this up, like, right. This was, I copied this from somebody because I heard about it. There's a physicist, let me look him up. Dr. Masura Emoto. And what he claimed was when water was exposed to positive speech and thoughts, it would result in visually pleasing crystals being formed in the water when it was frozen, and that the negative indentation would yield ugly frozen crystal formations. And so he did this study in Tokyo, and used about 2,000 people to focus either positive intentions and words towards water samples or negativity. And the difference in Dr. Emoto's thing, and you can look it up, Dr. Emoto, is the water crystals.
Wow. Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's why Pam talks to her plants. I'm like, what are you doing talking to your plants, you nutter? But
yeah, not even kidding. Here's another one.
Oh, wow. You should talk to them. It helps them grow. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same idea with the plants. Now, a lot of times people think, well, you're giving the carbon dioxide, blah, 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 blah. But if you actually run the same experiment with plants and you speak horrible and negative to the plants, it actually kills the cell of the plant. Versus when you speak positivity to the plant and love, it grows and it flourishes more. It's incredibly cool science, but it's for me, it's science proving the biblical truth, right? That I already knew. or had a concept of, but being able to show it to the kids was what was so important to me.
Yeah, it's a great lesson, definitely.
When you came on, Craig, I was thinking back to your mindset model from the talk that you did last year, and you used the word earlier, the stories that we tell ourselves. So if we're using the concept that language is, or the words that we use are really important, what are some of the ways in which using your model that can help people?
Oh wow, good question. So I think we, from my own understanding, certainly my own experience, is that we have a tendency where a lot of us, I think some people are better at it than others naturally, but the vast majority of us are predisposed to focus on negativity. We're predisposed. It's negativity bias, isn't it? It's through thousands of years of evolution that we're going to focus on something bad rather than something good, because if something bad will harm us, it will hurt us, could even kill us. So we're predisposed to focus on negative things. It's a survival mechanism. So we see the threat, and our brain is trying to take us from point A to point B, and move away from the threat into a point of safety. Now, with that particular model in mind, and I was on my mindset webinar yesterday, we were talking about it as well. Our emotional brain, our emotional center, has no capacity for language, does it? It just sends those signals out that creates the chemicals that creates the feeling, and whatever feeling that is, whether it's a nice feeling, or the majority of the time when we sense a threat, or all of the time we sense a threat, it will be a negative feeling. So anxiety, worry, stress, fear, whatever. And they say it's actually a couple of seconds later, so it's a long time in the scheme of things, for a feeling like that to settle in you, and you're kind of, what's going on? Why am I feeling crap? Blah, blah, blah. And then your newer brain, neocortex, kicks in, which as we know, deals with language, but doesn't deal with feelings, and also doesn't deal with decisions or behavior. That kicks in, and then that's trying to rationalize why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and why you're behaving or need to behave the way you need to behave. And it's trying to work it out. Because at this point, you're just acting on pure instinct. And I think this is where the language comes in. So we dig up our memories, we relive, we create scenarios and situations, we pre-live in order to make sense of that, in order to problem solve. And then the stories we tell will generally, for the vast majority of people, have a negative bias. And then you get a negative story attitude. So the simple example I use is, if you wake up in the morning and you're really, really tired, and you then think to yourself, oh, I'm really, really tired, and it could be for whatever reason, and then what you'll probably do is you probably won't go to the night before and what made you tired, either the too many beers or the dodgy kebab. Or do you guys have kebabs, John?
Of course we have kebabs.
But
we call them kebabs.
Kebabs, okay. Or a dodgy one of those.
I want to know. I want you to physically describe what you think the kebab looks like.
Okay, so a kebab is it's a stick with meat and vegetables on it that you cook. Is that not correct?
Version of
not a dirty kebab. Not a dirty kebab.
When you come over, we'll get you on. But anyway,
we'll get a real kebab.
Very rarely will we, in that situation, will we go straight to what the cause is and think, oh my God, it's just because of that, I'll go and sort out what I need to sort out. What we'll probably do when we're feeling like that, we'll then start thinking, because we're feeling really rough and tired and we just want to stay in bed, we'll probably think ahead to our day and think, oh, I've got that meeting, and that person's in the meeting, and oh my God, I really don't want to do that. And all of a sudden you've added another story, language, and a layer, which is trying to justify why you feel bad, or why you feel demotivated, or whatever. And then because you stay in bed a little bit longer, you start running late. And then you start creating scenarios about what's going to happen when you turn up late for the meeting, and you add layers and layers and layers. And all of these are stories to try and make sense of why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and to try and problem solve your way out of not feeling that way. So a lot of people go, do you know what? I'm not going to go anywhere today. I'm going to call in sick. Problem solved.
Yep.
Or I'm going to make up
flight fear.
Yeah, or I'm going to make up an excuse not to do it. And that's where this language and the stories are really, really powerful. And the negative ones, I mean, they're toxic. I mean, I think it's just like having, I don't know, I can't really describe it, but it's just toxicity in you, and it just fills you. And if you're not careful, and if you don't catch it, and if you don't change the language by bringing yourself back present into the now, and change that commentary, and actually create a commentary that's real and not either relived or pre-lived, because that's just memory, that's just imagination and not real particularly. And then unless you do that, you're going to really, really struggle, and those words are going to cause you harm. And then, by the way, when you get to the meeting, because you're so fed up, you snap at the person in the meeting, that makes them feel crap, they react to you, and it gets in a vicious cycle, the cycle of conflict.
So I want to add a few things. One, I thought you said common tree. Not, and for me, for the way I was like, common tree, what is he talking about a tree for?
Oh, commentary.
And for me, it's commentary. And I was like, and then I was like, oh, wait, no, he's talking about like self-talk. Like
self-talk, yeah.
So that's one. Man, I gotta brush up on my English, my proper English.
You're fine.
The other thing is, it's interesting that you mentioned that stuff, Craig, because I was learning a little bit about our central nervous system, right, that controls our fight or flight. Our central nervous system doesn't know love. It doesn't know hate. It doesn't know emotions. It doesn't know anything like that. All it knows is keep Craig McHugh alive, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So it controls the fight or flight. And what's really interesting about what you're talking about is from our past trauma, different things that happened to us when we were growing up, we attach stories to our central nervous system that explain to us who we are and what we need to be fearful of. And so where it was originally created to be able to tell us, hey, that tiger is going to eat us, or hey, that bunny is something that we can go and eat ourselves, we have now attached these stories to it, so that when we come up in situations where we might have emotional responses to it, our central nervous system almost goes, oh, wait a second. This is a situation. This is really bad for us. We need to run. We need to get out of here. We need to, and so because of that, what we think is like, well, that's just the way that I respond. That's just the way that I am. No, it's not. It's the stories that have been attached to how we respond to different stimuli in our life based off of either responding in love or responding in fear.
Because if you actually notice and really reflect and think about this, whether you are feeling stressed or anxious or worried or afraid or in love or happy, the same bodily reactions occur. They might be slightly different chemicals, but in terms of heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, and all of that stuff that's getting ready for the action that you need to take, the bodily reactions are the same. It's when we add the stories to it that we then are able to identify what the emotion is. Depending on the stories we bring in.
Yeah, and it's funny too that people don't really realize that it's our subconscious thoughts, not our immediate thoughts in our head. Our subconscious thoughts that are happening at a quadrillion billion thoughts per second that dictate our beliefs. Our beliefs then dictate our actions, and our actions dictate our results. And so there are these, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but it's oftentimes that we've not taken the time to really identify what it is our subconscious thoughts are, or what those subconscious stories are that are making us believe what we believe, thus that then is a causation to the actions that we choose to take in those situations. And
1,000,000%. And you know, when these stories happen, we'll go back through our archives to try and find something that makes sense of what's going on, or
because we're trying to rationalize. It's all this sense of rationalization of I've got to rationalize my belief, and this other story back here that happened is going to go, oh yeah, oh it's just like this. Or even if they're not related in any way whatsoever, we will find whatever story or belief that we have back here that we can use to explain why we acted the way we acted or why we think the way that we think.
Absolutely.
So that we're justified in our thoughts and in our actions.
Absolutely. They're called the clever story. So you get your victim story, your villain story. So victim's about us, villain's about someone else. The helpless story, I can't do anything about it. And then the clever story, which is what you just described just there. And, you know, I try really hard not to do this, and I have to work hard at it. But if I see something that I just don't agree with or I don't get, and that's maybe a deep-rooted thing for me, that will make me feel a certain way, and then I'll create a story around it to justify why I feel that way. But actually, in the scheme of things, and just going back to what your wife said was, what did you say? It's got nothing to do with you.
It's got nothing to do with me.
My God, that is one of the best things I've heard in like forever.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of things, I mean, I've really struggled with social media recently. And, you know, you see these things that you don't like or don't agree with in the way people are behaving or portraying themselves. And I did a post about it the other week. And actually, I'm a bit disappointed in myself that I actually made it my business and my problem, because I should have just ignored it and let it go. Because it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I could have going or switched it off.
Yeah, I've taken so many. I had the other day, and it's funny. Once you, what people don't realize, and this is kind of something helpful for anybody who's listening. Once you understand this, once you start grasping this concept, what you will notice is it. You know, there's the idea of take your thoughts captive, right? And for me, it's the idea of running it through a filter of truth, right? And so the other day I was sitting there and I saw somebody post something on social media, and I was like, oh, I'm going to respond to that. And like halfway through typing on my phone, I was like, oh, no, I'm going to take a step back because it has nothing to do with me. And my adding to this, what am I doing, right? Am I making the situation, or am I making it worse? And oftentimes in our head, we think, oh no, I'm going to make a comment on this, and everybody is finally going to understand what really should be, right? What the truth is. But in reality, it's like, I need to just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. But that's the story we're playing to justify how we're feeling.
Right. I'm glad I'm not the only one suns out, guns out today with Heather here.
You're also now equally numbered Americans to English, so
that's right.
Good
and
to
not even just Americans. We've got Southerners.
Yeah.
Different breed.
Well, you descend from English people, surely, technically.
We do. Yeah.
How are you, Heather?
For deep stuff. What's going on here? I just saw a link and I clicked it.
Well, welcome down the rabbit hole. So you have just joined a conversation that started with Jonathan having done an experiment with his kids, a 21-day experiment of speaking love or hate to these two apples in jars, the same apple cut in half in two separate jars. And
was it the same apple? I didn't know it was the same apple.
Yeah, it was the same apple. So again, right, controlling variables.
Yeah,
so
I didn't know. I thought it were two different apples.
Yeah, so it was the same apple that I cut in half. And Heather, this was the if you can see that on your phone, that was the results of speaking love or hate.
An apple, a real apple. I thought I was really and I said he was speaking hate to his children from experiment, and I thought an apple. Dang.
No, yeah, that's a savage experiment. So I guess what we were talking about is the implication of language, the power of our words, not only to ourselves, but the way that we lead as well. And I'd just be curious to know what your kind of take is on the power of language.
Well, I mean, there's been so much research done, and I'm sure I've already covered that, where, you know, even the effects of like water, just matter, with our words. I think there's like it affects us at like an unconscious level where I was on another call a minute ago with a psychologist who was talking about how trauma doesn't even like become raised in our consciousness until we're older. And sometimes we figure out kind of how it affected us, because if you're used to, certain language being used growing up, I know for me, my mom was very, very verbal with us, like not in a good way. And I didn't know anything different until I was older. And there was like this natural tendency to be like, oh, well, I'm stupid in this area, or I'm this, or I'm that. Because, when you're at that developmental stage, it literally affects the wiring of your brain, where your brain is conditioned from a biochemical level to, believe this is truth. And so motivational stuff like, oh, just, you're awesome, blah, 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 that's great. But also, too, we have to understand that when there's been years and years of conditioning for one thing, it's going to take a time and intention to start unraveling that and literally rewiring the neurons in our brain to think differently. So it's a very serious thing. It's a very spiritual thing, too. Like there's a lot of spiritual implications there of words and life and all of that. But yeah, I think it's a powerful topic. So
love that. Well, welcome. So good to see you. Where were you? Sorry, did I interrupt the flow of...
Guys, I'm really sorry, but I've got to jump off because I've got a call in about a minute or 2 minutes. What's the time?
Peace and love.
About 5 minutes. But lovely to see you, Heather.
Nice to meet you.
I've seen a lot of your stuff, and it's great. So yeah, good to meet you at last. And gentlemen, pleasure as always.
Speak to you soon, my friend.
Two legends. Stay safe, stay well, stay awesome. And yeah, thank you for inviting me to jump on. It's been good.
Always. Love you, dude. Speak to you soon.
Take care. See you later, guys.
Peace. And that then leads me to be the outnumber one. How does this happen?
Oh, the Americans are taking over.
Right, I'm coming to visit. When am I coming? When am I allowed into your country?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned now, but...
Good. You have to smuggle me in.
I'll do it. I'll figure out a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, Ryan.
There is a will, so there must be a way, for sure. For sure. We got a few minutes left. How should we wrap up this conversation?
So, Heather, okay, you and I and Ryan, obviously, we do understand the spiritual implications of our words and that our tongue has the power to bring life or death for ourselves and for others. Heather, I don't know if you've read this book, but there's a book by she's a Christian neurobiologist, Dr. Caroline Leaf. Yeah, and like she's absolutely incredible, and her book Think and Eat Yourself Smart talks a lot about how at a cellular level we are made for love, and the words we speak and the thoughts we have subconsciously can I mean in her summation, our bodies have the power to cure themselves of cancer.
Yep.
If we believe it and we speak it and we not and here's the thing, there's a difference between believing something and knowing it's truth. Knowing is fact, it's truth. Believing there's a for me in my thought process, there's an element of doubt. You either know that I am God and that I love you and I sent my only son to die on the cross so that you could have life through me, or you believe it. I choose to know it because it's truth and it's fact, it's real. But I would say, Heather, like what would you say? So people listening, always better than yesterday and stuff. How does someone make that mind shift from that negative self-talk, that how we present ourselves in our language to other people? How do you start identifying those situations, and how do you make that shift so that you can start speaking life? Did she freeze?
Yeah, you took so long to ask the question. She's like, this guy, he is.
It froze. Let me get on the computer.
She's back now. Oh, she's gone. She gone.
She's going to the computer. Have you there we go, she comes again. Dee-dee-dee.
Okay. So the last thing I heard you said is, what would you tell someone who, and that was it. Sorry.
How do you tell someone how do you help someone make that switch to start identifying that negative self-talk, how they speak, and how do you help them identify that?
Well, for me, I think environment and being in an energy space, that's where some of this stuff can come into awareness. Because again, I think it is a spiritual thing that has to be kind of revealed to you and also healed through that. So God, whatever. So Ryan, like the work that you're doing where you're allowing space and creating it, like someone entering into this conversation. Yes, I'm physically coming into this conversation, but also too, I'm entering into a space where there's a correct environment for this to be brought up to my awareness, and also feel safe enough for it to start exploring it and start healing it. So, I know it's kind of a weird or roundabout way to say that, being very intentional with putting yourself in an environment just like this conversation constantly, because, we can heal on our own, of course, but I think God created community and God created us to connect for a reason, because he is there, like there he is in the midst of us. So right now, like I carry a piece of God, you carry a piece of God. And when we come together, his presence is so much stronger. And I think that's where he does a lot of his healing. So, either if it's you're verbally sharing, your story, there's so much healing in that. Hearing other people's story, knowing you're not alone, spending time in the presence of God, whether that's through meditation or prayer or whatever it may be. Going outside, I felt so much healing going outside, going on my runs. Like that's some time for me and God. Like I need that. And I think healing is constant. But yeah, that's what I think.
It's interesting when you picked up the word spiritual in the thought process, because when I interviewed John Gordon, he said this one thing that really stuck with me. He said, do you ever choose your negative thoughts? He's like, would you choose a negative thought? And he says, no, of course you wouldn't. Why would you choose a negative thought? And he said, when you realize that you wouldn't choose it, you realize there's a spiritual warfare going on. Those thoughts don't come from you. And it's like when you put it at that level, you think, oh, wow.
So to add to that, through this marriage coaching stuff we're doing with Pastor Tommy and his wife, Michelle, Michelle brought up something because I was talking about some things about my, connection and different things and my fear of losing connection. And she was like, fear. She was like, do you believe fear is a choice? And I was like, well, yeah, of course it is. She goes, no, it's not. She goes, fear is a spirit that attacks you. She was like, because we weren't given, when we were created, we weren't given fear. We were given love. Fear is, and so there's that spiritual aspect to fear. Is a spirit that attaches to us and tells us lies about ourselves and about others and about situations. And that the choice that we have is to remove that from us through speaking truth through God's word to it. Because when you speak truth through God's word and scripture, the devil has to flee from you. Spirits have to flee from you. And there's a spiritual aspect to that. And it was incredible, because I used to think, oh, well, I don't have to choose to be scared of something. I don't have to choose fear or anxiety or any of those things. And they were like, no, it's not a choice of you either choose it or you don't. It's you realize that it's a spirit, and you remove it from the situation, so that you can live in peace, truth, kindness, patience, long suffering, and all of that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it leaves. I think I would agree with what you're saying. I think it becomes maybe presence, but over here, as opposed to right here. You know what I mean? Yeah. So where you can notice, like, hey, I acknowledge that this is here and that this is talking to me right now, but I don't have to adapt that into my identity, and I don't have to let it like rule me, because I still feel a lot of stuff in the midst of like taking action and doing things. But like you said, you notice that it's not your voice, it's something else happening.
Yeah. Because when you know your identity, and you're like, to your point, when you're connected with God, you spend that time there, you absorb his word, and you understand the value in who you were created to be and who lives inside of you, you don't have to use that as your identity. You can put that over here and go, no, that's not me, because that's not truth.
Amen.
Truth is this, and it's through all of my years of, I was saved back in 2008. I feel like for the first time over the last 3 weeks, I'm actually fully starting to understand what it means to know what God says about me, and how that can play out in every moment and every situation that I'm in when I allow that to live inside of me and fill me to spill me, if you will.
Mm.
I wasn't
As
ready
m-
for this when I clicked on.
No. Well, this is, absolutely, every step. So I think rather than me being self-indulgent and spending all afternoon with you guys, because I could quite easily do that, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to say thank you so much for joining. Thank you for embracing the conversations. Like, what are you guys up to this weekend?
I'm gonna go to the zoo with my kids. Brian, we were talking about, like, let's go to the zoo, but then they're like, well, you have to wear masks, and I'm like, that'd be really hot having to wear a mask. But we found a zoo where they just keep people, like a limit how many people come in. You don't have to
You
wear a
found a
mask.
zoo where they keep people?
I know, it's gonna be so great.
Do you live near Joe Exotic? You can go to the Tiger King.
Oh, I see. We watched about 20 minutes of that, and then we turned it off. We're like, what is this crap? We need a better shot though. Yeah, but we're just gonna go to the zoo, hang out with the kids a little bit. That's about it. What about you,
Good for
John?
the soul.
I am. I'm going to leaving for Indiana this afternoon, going up back up to visit my sister for the evening, and then one of my best friends from high school got married earlier this year, and they're doing a reception in kind of in our hometown. And so the wife are going up, we're leaving the kids at my sister's and having a little night away for some wedding reception fun with some friends that I haven't seen in gosh, almost 10 years. So really
a special shave just for it, didn't you?
Shut up. Like, it is so like, I just want my beard. I just want my beard back. And by the way, Heather, tell your husband, because I follow Brian and Bones to Bulk. Little shout out there. Tell him it's really cool to see him stepping out and doing what he's doing online. And he and I have a lot of, I was an exercise science major. That's what he studies in school.
Yeah.
I was a strength coach, a trainer for a long time. And he and I have a lot of similar ideologies around things. And it's really cool to see him doing it right and teaching people right versus bro science and
Right.
not truth. So tell him, like, from someone who has studied it and lived it for